Beverly's Ford, Kelly's Ford, those are the swinging gates. You read through the official records, you read through the reports, you'll see these Fords mentioned over and over again. This is key terrain. There's no mistake, no coincidence that they fought here on June 9th, because this is key terrain.
Washington Artillery, Police Command, were here in August of '62. That night they got hammered by Thompson's battery, C and F, Pennsylvania batteries, on the other side of the river at Rappahannock Station, today's Remington. Soldiers from the Washington Artillery were buried that night in the St. James Church at our next stop.
If you walk down there today, there's a tombstone for an unknown soldier from that battery.
Is there a name of that battle?
It's ostensibly called the First Battle of Rappahannock Station. Very small action. But this position was used not only in August of '62, it was used briefly in October to hold the position after the Confederates came back from Antietam. It was used here real briefly in June of '63, except we were going this way, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It was used in October of '63 and November of '63 and through the winter encampment. As it kept getting stronger and stronger, this position got stronger and stronger as the seasons went on, because I like to call the Brandy Station area an onion. There's so many layers, there's so many things that happen at certain spots on the battlefield that happen over and over and over again, because it's the key ground, the key positions. These guys are smart people, they know where to put stuff.
How many have visited the Culpeper National Cemetery in town? You go up to the Pennsylvania Monument. Read the list of actions that occurred, that they said that they had interred troops who had fought in those actions. How many times Beverly's Ford, Kelly's Ford, Fleetwood Hill, Brandy Station are mentioned on that memorial?
It bears noting that the June 9, 1863 battle that we're here studying today was actually the second battle of Brandy Station. The first one was fought August 20, 1862. It was fought between a Union cavalry brigade commanded by General George Dashiell Bayard, who was killed, mortally wounded at the Battle of Fredericksburg in December of '62, against some of Stuart's troops under Beverly Robertson, and it was fought on that same ground over there at Fleetwood Hill that we're going to be visiting later today. And again, there'll be a battle fought on the same ground on August 1st of 1863, and finally a fourth battle fought here on October 11th, 1863. So when you talk about Fleetwood Hill and you talk about this area, you're talking about one of the most fought over pieces of ground in the United States.
12 times.
So yeah, Mike's got a chart here that shows 12 times. So
12 times. Last time, November 8th.
Probably the most useful map as we look at this particular area is this one from your packet. It's going to be the about the
folks,
third
if
map
you would face this direction, please.
Face only his mother would love. We'll move down here a little bit, folks.
Right there. Move in the back.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Craig.
Folks, I like to bring folks here because not only is it a beautiful place, but it is a commanding general's observation and command platform during morning phase, mid-morning phase of the Battle of Brandy Station. But it is also a saved battlefield. You own this, you, the American people, and I understand we've got a few Brits with us. They're our cousins, so they own this too. And it's here, as Craig said earlier, for you to come here anytime that you want and visit. Now, a little bit of preservation background. In the mid-'80s, I used to come down here. I was stationed in Washington, which didn't make me a very smart man. So I would come down here on the weekends to get away from Washington, and I had my maps with me and my accounts of the Battle of Brandy Station, and I would walk these fields, starting at about 85, 86, 87. I was down here a lot on the weekends. And I knew all these farmers. This is Bob Button's farmhouse was down here. And over here was Aubrey Foster. And over there was Fred Gordon. And back here was another farmer and another farmer and another farmer. And they knew I was harmless, so they didn't mind me coming onto their property. Well, Bob Button down here, who owned a 500-acre farm, indicated to me that in '87, Bud, I just sold my farm. I said, you did, Bob? Bob he went way back here in Culpeper County, and it surprised me a little bit that he sold his farm. I said, well, who'd you sell it to? He said, some fella from California. Well, all of a sudden, my antenna went up. Now, with us today is my fellow Chantilly Battlefield Association board member, and Ed Wenzel back there. And Ed, wave your hand. Ed and Brian Pohanka and I had just fought, and we're fighting the Battle of Ox Hill again, trying to save the Ox Hill battlefield in Fairfax. And we were very suspicious of people coming in and buying battlefield. But I didn't think much of it at the time until Fred Gordon told me his farm was sold. Who'd you sell it to, Fred? Sold it to a fellow from California. And then, okay, and I'm at FBI headquarters and not real hard to check people out. So I found that he was a commercial developer from Irvine, California. Well, the APCWS, the Association for the Reservation and Civil War Site, had just been formed a few months before on the heels of our Chantilly work. Ed was a board member of APCWS. So I went over and briefed the APCWS board, and Gallagher and Crick, in their inimitable way, says, well, what's he going to do? And I said, I don't know what he's going to do. He said, well, meet him and find out what he's going to do. So I met him on behalf of APCWS, the forerunner to the Civil War Trust. Okay, we all familiar now? I met him, and he said, I'm going to farm this place. And I said, come on, sir. Just didn't fall off the turnip truck. So he then said, well, I'm going to farm it. Well, we didn't believe him. And we formed, APCWS formed a group. We paid out Jack Ackerley, who was our counsel. Where's Jack at? Where's Jack? Jack Ackerley was our attorney, right there. And Jack drew up the Articles of Incorporation for the Brandy Station Foundation. And we founded the Brandy Station Foundation. I think we paid $1,500, Jack. And so that Brandy Station Foundation, and folks, I've been in the business of law and law enforcement all my life, investigations. And if there is an attorney I'm glad I have on my side, it's Jack Ackerley. If I ever done anything wrong, I would not want Jack Ackerley opposed to me. That's a fact. Jack Ackerley is the most rigorous attorney I've ever known, actually, and my friend, and we're grateful that he could be out here today. And he and the APCWS board that voted to get involved in this thing at the outset, they're the real heroes here. So, long story short, we filed suit against this developer for violation of comprehensive plan. He ended up buying almost 6,000 acres. That he was going to make a commercial office park, and a long story short, when we filed suit against him, he ultimately yielded to our relentless pursuit, and he filed bankruptcy. So when he filed bankruptcy, he sold this portion of the property that we're standing at to a fellow from Irvine, for a fellow from Rochester, New York, that wanted to build a Formula One racetrack here.
Because Formula One racing is so popular in the United States.
So I met him here. His name was James Laser, and I worked to see in organized crime in the FBI, and I've been around some oily characters. This guy might be the oiliest character I ever met. So I stood up here with him, and he's explaining to me that the concession stand is going to go here, the beer joints, and all that, and the track's going to go at the base of that tree line in the distance, and I'm going to tell you about that tree line in just a minute. And I blanched back from that, and I said, Mr. Laser, you're aware that you bought a large part of the morning phase of the Battle of Brandy Station, and I said, we don't believe that your racetrack is appropriate usage for this battlefield. And he said, you might not like it, Mr. Hall, but we're going to build our racetrack here. And I said, you know what? We'll take that action. File suit against him. The last I saw of him with his black Denali with his tail between his legs was headed to New York, from which he's never returned. So, and Jack knows the story, and Ed knows the story, and a couple of others here know the story. we ended up buying this place. And now you reap the benefits of it.
How many acres?
We control about 2,000 acres, and I'm going to ask at this point right here, Mark Coombs of the Civil War Trust is present. Mark, step forward and boast a little bit about this. Where's Mark at?
Right over here, bud.
And his typical bad hat.
Might give away my Western heritage a little bit. Well, I will keep it short because I have a very important message. They always say that you retain about 10% of what you hear. So if you retain anything, retain the very end. But Bud is always very generous and very gracious about pointing out what the Civil War Trust has done. But I think everyone may discern by the end of the day that if you haven't already, that our tour commander had a little bit to do with that. So thank you so much to Bud for everything that he's done, and thank you to the not only to the Loudoun County Civil War Roundtable for putting this event together today, but for all of you who are here, who've supported the Civil War Trust in the past. You are truly the reason why we've been able to accomplish what we have to this point. And for my, particularly those of you who get emails like this, we've made a lot of progress to date. But as Bud pointed out earlier, this is a very big battlefield, and we still have quite a ways to go. You'll be hearing a lot about Fleetwood Hill, if not right now, a little bit later on today. And we are 42% of the way there in terms of money raised. But for those of you at the end of the tour today, if you want to do a little more, we are always so appreciative of that. And the 10% that I want you to remember is civilwar.org/Brandy Station. So hopefully that is a good, quick, and easy way to get there, and you can read a lot more about the battle, see some videos of Bud on that site, and then also if you look on the right hand, there's a sidebar there. It talks about not only our current fundraising effort, but goes into what we've been able to accomplish with your help and your generosity to date. So thank you so much to all of you, to Bud and to the Loudoun County Civil War Roundtable for having us today. This is really wonderful.
Thank you.
Civilwar.org/Brandy Station.
And you're going to hear that again today. And thanks, Mark, and on behalf of us, thank you and Civil War Trust, Jim Lighthizer, for everything that y'all are doing to take the leadership role here at Brandy Station. They are the drivers here. Eric and Mike and I are just the implementers of their vision. They're the drivers. We work for them, and I don't mind saying that. They don't pay us a lot, by the way. We need to address that one of these days, right, Eric? Mike?
We'll talk about it.
The folks, I want to say something. I've never taken my grandson on a tour of the Battle of Brandy Station, and he's around here somewhere. There he is, right there, a little boy right there. And he's about the most important person out here to me, and he's got the blood of the 13th Mississippi Infantry running in him, along with the boy to his right, my son, a National Park Service Ranger, Brian, and my daughter here is Melissa from Toronto, Canada, and her young man, Michelangelo Lapari, an honest banker, by the way, and from Toronto. So, but anytime this gentleman ever shows up, he always becomes, for me, the reason that we do a lot of this, because his DNA is so profoundly important to us as American citizens. Let me read a little bit about his great-grandfather. Longstreet said that Jeb Stuart was the embodiment of all that goes to make up the ideal soldierly quality. A Union officer said Jeb Stuart was a cavalry officer by instinct and a very sweet character. Edward Porter Alexander, the great Confederate artillerist, said Stuart possessed the rare quality of being always equal to himself at his very best. George Moffett, 12th Virginia Cavalry, said he always fought the hardest when things looked the worst. A teamster prior to the war said that General Stuart, when he was a lieutenant, always saw the ridiculous side of everything. He was not a complex man. His emotions laid very shallow. He was a man, and I like this, utterly without a dark side. What he was, he was. No dark side, no hidden agenda. And he was living proof that some men are nothing to be born. Some men are born to be nothing but soldiers, just like John Buford, who we're going to talk about in just a minute. That's Jeb Stuart. And Jeb Stuart IV is here with us today, right here. And his son, John Stuart. Where's John? John's in the back. He's big as Harris von Borky. John Stuart. And his son, Sam, is right here. 3 generations of Stuarts here with us, folks. And Sam, welcome. And this is his first time at Brandy Station. And somewhere I think I have is that true, Jeb? Because we had him out here as a boy many years ago where I had him on my shoulder?
No, that was Jeb 6.
Jeb, so they're centered at Brandy Station. And he's been enormously helpful to the Civil War Trust. Colonel Stewart has been enormously helpful to the Civil War Trust in getting out the word about the importance of Brandy Station at Fleetwood Hill. And we're grateful you could be with us today, Jeb and Sam and John. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to talk now very quickly. We're going to get into some heavy tactics. You're standing on, when I first started coming out here, realizing that this right here was where John Buford commanded the mid-morning phase of the battle. I call this Buford's Knoll, and it's Buford's Knoll today. This is the southern extension of the Cunningham House Ridge. The Cunningham House Ridge goes in this direction. It pivots around, does a little dog leg, and it drops down into the Hazel River. Now you're looking down here into the floodplain of the Hazel River. That's the Hazel River, where the tree line is at. The tree line comes down here, and then at the confluence with the Hazel and the Rappahannock, the two become the Rappahannock River, and then it tracks on down to Fredericksburg, 54 miles or so beyond that confluence. So Beverly's Ford is 300 yards south of that confluence, and I'll be pointing that out to you in a better, in a more advantageous position here in just a second. So the Cunningham House Ridge, and I'll tell you in just a minute when we get down to the Cunningham House site, I'll tell you why it's called the Cunningham House Ridge. So now this ridge runs all the way to the Hazel River. It's at its highest at the southern terminus. Its left, this line's left is refused at the bottom of the hill by Ruffin's Run. Ruffin's Run comes up from the other side of that hill in the distance, comes around, it comes out of a spring on the side of a hill. If you go around where it comes out of the spring on the side of that hill, it will knock you down with the force of water coming out of the side of the hill. All the way around, Ruffin's Run comes through the battlefield and enters the Rappahannock River just beneath the ford. Ruffin's Run. So orienting you here, this becomes very important ground for the Federals in the morning of 9 June 1863. Alternatively, the piece of ground on the other side becomes very important ground for the Confederates. And working with the Civil War Trust, Sandra Stevens right here, consultant, this property was placed under easement by the Department of Historic Resources. This property over here. So we've got the entire federal line that we own it, and over there, that's an easement, that's part of Beauregard Farm. You see Rooney Lee's Knoll where the geese are flying? You're going to be over there in about an hour. You're going to be on top of that in about an hour, right there. I have never taken a tour group up there before. You'll be the first. So, right here, the Federals, when they fail in the attack at St. James Church, and we'll be talking about their failed assaults at St. James Church when we get to St. James Church later on today. That's where you're going to have your lunch, actually. The assaults would have failed. Remember what the federal orders are. John Buford's orders are, and they're not discretionary. You can't just change the orders. His orders are to proceed to Brandy Station. Brandy Station is 4 miles from Beverly's Ford. The left wing is crossing at Kelly's Ford. They've got 8 miles to go from Kelly's Ford to Brandy Station. They've got further to come. So, but John Buford's orders are, get to Brandy Station, where you will hook up with the left wing, General Gregg, and the two of you will combine, and then you'll march on Culpeper Courthouse and disperse and destroy the enemy. Do you see the problem with those orders? The problem with those orders is that the Confederates might have something to say about that. The Confederates might have something to say about you hooking up in Brandy Station. And the Confederates are already mightily irritated because they've been awakened from their red roll. And they've been attacked. These fellows are not accustomed to being attacked by Yankees. They are not accustomed. They don't like it. They don't like it at all. And especially their brigade commander doesn't like it. Grumble Jones. 3,600 troopers in that brigade. And they're camped back here. Now the 6th Virginia Cavalry will have a little company of between 60 and 70 men. That's Company A, 6th Virginia Cavalry. They'll be camped right back here on a little knoll. Be camped right back here on a little knoll. And as the Federals attack, they come across the ford, they will run into his little company. He is, Bruce Gibson, is a cousin of Robert E. Lee. Got a lot of the same obstinate blood in him. One of his men said he was as brave as a lion. And when he saw that the Yankees were crossing in dangerous force, he heard the gunfire. His pickets are falling back. He stands up out of his bedroll and he says, "Stay cool, man, and shoot to kill." Stay cool, man, and shoot to kill. So the Federals are coming across, and he puts up a bold front right away. But you've got 800 plus men of the 8th New York Cavalry against 60. Numbers do tell, don't they? Numbers do tell, and they break through an obstruction that the Confederates put up down here at the base of this knoll. They break through an obstruction,